Today, we're taking a trip to one of literature's most unforgettable small towns. It's a place run almost entirely by women, a place with its own set of unwritten rules, and, above all, a place defined by this quiet, dignified strength. So, let's dive in and pay a visit to the world of Cranford. This one quote, it's basically the key that unlocks the entire town. You see, in Cranford, being poor isn't a failure. It's just a private situation that you handle with grace. They call it elegant economy. The ladies of the town might not have much in the bank, but in their hearts and minds, they are all aristocratic. This whole society is built on keeping up appearances, not out of vanity, but from this deep shared understanding of how to respect each other's dignity. And make no mistake, Cranford is, for all intents and purposes, a society of Amazons. It's a community made up almost entirely of women, mostly widows and spinsters. Men are, well, they're a rarity, and frankly, they're often seen as a bit vulgar, a disruption to the peaceful order of things. In this town, real power isn't about how much money you have, it's about mastering this intricate web of social rules where being genteel is the most valuable currency you can have. And these rules just tell you so much about the town's personality. They're both incredibly charming and deeply practical. Hiding your poverty isn't about shame. It's about not wanting to burden your friends with your problems. And the rule about the oranges? Well, it's simply not classy to be heard slurping in public. Every single rule, no matter how quirky it seems, is there to keep the delicate social harmony of the town humming along. And this right here perfectly captures the heart of Cranford. When Miss Betsy Barker's precious cow accidentally falls into a pit and loses all her hair, the town doesn't just point and laugh. No, after the initial wave of sympathy, they get to work. They actually make the poor, shivering animal a custom-fit waistcoat out of gray flannel. It's this perfect, hilarious blend of eccentricity and just profound collective kindness. Now, this delicate balance is about to get a little shaken up with the arrival of Captain Brown. As a man, and a poor, retired one at that, he really should be a total outsider. But his genuine kindness and good heart win over the ladies of Cranford pretty quickly. He's this gentle disruption, a man who doesn't even realize he's challenging the town's rigid ideas about everything, from social class to, of all things, literature. And that leads us to one of the most famous scenes in the entire book. See, Captain Brown is a huge fan of the new, serialized stories by a writer called Mr. Boz, who, of course, we know is Charles Dickens. The captain thinks the Pickwick Papers is famously good. But for Miss Jenkyns, the town's undisputed literary authority, this is just awful. Her gold standard is the grand, formal prose of Dr. Johnson. In fact, she's modeled her own writing style on his. So after a fiery debate where she literally reads from Dr. Johnson to prove her point against the captain's reading from Pickwick, Miss Jenkyns just shuts it all down with this one final absolute statement. And you can tell it's about so much more than books. It's a defense of tradition, of order, of a whole world she feels is starting to slip away. And then, literally the very next day, tragedy strikes. The captain is at the railway station, completely lost in the latest installment of the very book Miss Jenkyns hated so much. When a little kid wanders onto the tracks, he doesn't think twice. He leaps forward, saves the child, but he's killed by the train. The irony is just heartbreaking. He died distracted by the very vulgar literature he adored. In that one awful moment, all the town's little squabbles and literary debates just evaporate. Miss Jenkyns' regret is instant and overwhelming. She realizes that the captain's character, his kindness, his bravery, was worth so much more than his taste in books. The town has lost a truly good man, and everyone feels it deeply. With the death of the formidable Miss Jenkyns, our story's focus shifts to her much gentler, younger sister, Miss Matty. Now, she seems like someone who's always lived in her sister's shadow, but, as we're about to find out, she has her own quiet history and a hidden heart. Out of the blue, a chance meeting brings her face-to-face with Mr. Holbrook, a man who wanted to marry her decades ago. He was a farmer, you see, a class below her family, so the match was forbidden. He's quirky, he loves poetry, and he couldn't care less about Cranford's strict social rules. Their reunion is a little awkward for sure, but it's also incredibly sweet. After a wonderful day at his farm, Mr. Holbrook makes a surprise visit just before he leaves for a trip to Paris. And as he says goodbye, he calls her Matty, for the first time in 30 years. It's such a small moment, but it's just overflowing with all the affection of a lost life. Tragically, he gets sick on his trip and dies, leaving Miss Matty to mourn the life she could have had. So, just as Miss Matty is settling into her new, quiet life, an absolute catastrophe hits. And this isn't some social slip-up or a silly argument. This is a real-world disaster that threatens her whole way of life and puts that unwritten code of Cranford to the ultimate test. The news hits like a lightning bolt. The bank where her sister, against all advice, had invested all their money has failed. For Miss Matty, this means one thing. She is completely ruined. Suddenly, her annual income is down to just £13. For a woman who has always lived a modest but genteel life, that is an impossible sum to live on. She's basically destitute. And what is Miss Matty's very first reaction? Is it self-pity? No, it's relief for her dead sister. In her simple, selfless heart, her first thought is that her proud sister Deborah was spared the shame of this ruin. I mean, that one sentence just tells you everything you need to know about her beautiful character. This is when the Cranford Code truly gets put into practice. The ladies of the town jump into action. They hold a secret meeting and decide they'll each sacrifice a little bit of their own small incomes to create a fund for Miss Matty. But they know she'd never accept charity, so they do something brilliant. They present the money to her as if it were a return on an old investment. And in return, Miss Matty, determined to keep her independence, turns her own living room into a little shop to sell tea and candy. Miss Matty's quiet courage and the town's secret kindness are just so moving. But believe it or not, the story has one last, incredible twist left. A solution that comes from a ghost from the Jenkyns family's distant, painful past. So, we finally learn the whole story of poor Peter, Miss Matty's brother. Turns out, after a prank went wrong, his very strict father whipped him in public. Humiliated and angry, Peter ran away to sea and was thought to have died in a war in India years and years ago. His disappearance broke his mother's heart and left a scar on the family forever. And so, one afternoon, as Miss Matty is working in her little shop, a stranger walks in. He's an older man, gray-haired, just back from India. He seems to be looking for more than just tea, though, and there's something strangely familiar about him. He buys some candy, and something in his face just triggers a memory deep inside Miss Matty. With a voice full of hope and disbelief, she asks the question she never, ever dreamed she would get to ask. And in that moment of pure, joyful shock, her lost brother has come home. And Peter, well, he's not some fabulously wealthy prince, but he has enough to completely restore Miss Matty's finances. The little tea shop is closed, her dignity is restored, and the brother and sister, who were separated for a lifetime, are finally together again, able to live out their days in peace and comfort. So when we look back on our visit, it's pretty clear what the Cranford Code is all about. In this little town, the true measure of a person isn't what's in their bank account. It's the kindness in their heart. It's a place that knows that true class is about character, not cash. And that when things get tough, your community is the only safety net that really matters. You know, Elizabeth Gaskell wrote Cranford over 150 years ago, but its lessons feel more important now than ever. In our modern world, which is so often obsessed with wealth and public status, what can we learn from this quiet, unassuming little town that decided to run on a completely different currency, the simple, powerful, and timeless economy of kindness?